Hello and welcome to UZREPORT News. I'm Barnona Zarzoda. Chairman of the People's Republic of China, Xi Jinping, sent a message to President Shavkat Mirziyoyev extending his gratitude for the condolences and assistance to Chinese people. The international community, including Uzbekistan, expressed sympathy, condolences and support to the Chinese government and its people in various ways, which demonstrates friendly feelings towards us, his message states. Xi Jinping stressed that China is confident and able to prevent and contain the epidemic and is ready to work with the international community to contribute to public health around the world. UzAuto Motors vehicles will now be sold in foreign markets under the Chevrolet brand. This was announced by the company's press service. Since 2015, the company has been producing and selling under the brand name Ravon. As of March 2020, Spark, Nexia and Cobalt will be the first models available under Chevrolet brand in Russia, Kazakhstan and Belarus. The company believes that the brand name change will help boost the sales in foreign markets. As of 18 September 2019, all important mobile phone devices, including those imported for personal use, must register in the special unified database. The registration requirement applies to SIM-enabled tablets, smartphones, mobiles and other portable devices with IMEI number. The payment is to be made for each IMEI code. On February 14, the petition urging to cancel fees for registration mobile devices by IMEI and simplifying this procedure was published on the collective appeals portal Meaning Fikrim.
So far, the petition has received more than 13,000 votes and some 170 user comments. If the petition gets the required 10,000 signatures, it will be considered by the parliament. Before the introduction of the mandatory IMEI registration system in April 2020, mobile providers used to do it automatically and free of charge. Now, a $5 service fee has been imposed on the owners of new devices. It is believed that the new registration system will limit the use of counterfeit devices and the ones that have not passed the customs clearance procedure, and also help with finding stolen or lost mobile devices.
Earlier in his address at the opening of Humo Arena in Tashkent, President Shavkat Mirziyoyev assigned the Hokimat of the capital with the task of providing apartments to a number of prominent Soviet and Russian hockey players who contributed to the development of this sport in Uzbekistan. And so yesterday at a special ceremony, Tashkent Mayor Jahangir Ortiqxo'jayev handed over the keys of the brand new apartments granted by President Mirziyoyev to the Russian athletes. The hockey stars Valery Kamensky, Alexander Yakushev, Vitaly Prokhorov and Alexei Janov have become owners of the property located in the elite residential complex in downtown Tashkent. The Uzbek team, under the guidance of a talented chef, Hakim Ganiev, has prepared the largest laghman in the world. A 797-kilo Central Asian dish of pulled noodles, meat and vegetables was prepared in Moscow as part of the International Festival of Cultures. The record was registered by the international agency Intercourt. The previous record was fixed in 2015 in Almaty. And while laghman, not pilaf, no other food, according to project organizer Fatima Revjanova, laghman is a favorite dish of all Central nations, Uzbeks, Kazakhs, Uyghurs, and since the goal is to unite and erase the borders between people, it was decided to prepare this international dish. The chef Hakim Ganiev said he did his best to demonstrate the culture and cuisine of Uzbekistan. The Chorsu Hotel in Tashkent has been sold to an Arab company, Ittihad International Investment LLC, for 16.9 billion soums. Initially, the property was put up for auction at a starting price of 1 soum under investment commitments. Reportedly, the buyer will have to invest at least $25 million over the period of 2 years and create 150 new jobs. It is expected that after the renovation, this will turn into a 3-star hotel as a minimum. The new owner will also sign a binding obligation to provide hotel services for 10 years. The Asian weightlifting championships will be held in Uzbek capital instead of the Kazakh Nur-Sultan. Due to the outbreak of the coronavirus, the government of Kazakhstan has restricted all forms of passengers travel from and to countries neighboring China. The AWF Executive Board has therefore made a decision to relocate the host country from Kazakhstan to Uzbekistan. The Asian championships will be held in Tashkent, April 2020. The Bukhara Criminal Court has sentenced 5 residents of the province detained in August last year for illegal hunting of red-booked gazelles. The press service of the State Committee for Ecology and Environmental Protection reported 4 offenders were sentenced up to 3 years in prison and another one to 4 years. The court also ordered the poachers to cover financial damage in the amount of some $7,000. Meanwhile, Friends Club was opened at the Jairan Specialized Nursery in Bukhara. The club is a community of caring companies whose voluntary contributions will help save animals from starvation, as the natural forage reserves is enough for feeding only 800 animals out of 1,135. The State Statistics Committee reported increase in the number of permanent residents of Uzbekistan. According to the most recent statistical data, Uzbekistan's resident population has reached 34 million people, with the number of men slightly higher than the number of women. There are 17.9 million males and 16.9 females. Some 126,000 births and 29,000 deaths have been registered in the country since the beginning of this year. Even though the number of women in Uzbekistan is slightly behind the number of men, their share among the economically active population to date exceeds 46%. 7 out of 10 people engaged in the education, health and social services sectors are women. On February 18, Dilfuza Uralova has become a first woman to join the ranks of mayors. She was appointed a mayor of Bayo district of Sirdarya.
The head of a leading hospital in Wuhan has died of the coronavirus. Chinese state television reported that Liu Zhiming, the director of a hospital designated to treat virus-infected patients, died on Tuesday, making him the 7th health worker to fall victim. The number of new daily coronavirus cases in mainland China fell below 2,000 for the first time since January. But the World Health Organization warned that although Chinese data appeared to show a decline in new cases, any apparent trend must be interpreted very cautiously. The virus remains far from contained, despite China's lockdown of cities and tough curbs on travel, at great cost to the economy and global business. Singapore Airlines said it would temporarily cut flights across its network in the 3 months to May, as the epidemic hits demand for services in the Asian city-state, as well as through the key transit hub. The European Union Chamber of Commerce in China said the world's pharmacies may face a shortage of antibiotics and other drugs if the outbreak cannot be resolved soon, and accused Beijing of making supply chain problems worse. Japan, with 520 cases, the most outside of China, announced plans to use HIV drugs to combat the virus, as a growing number of cases pose an increasing threat to the world's 3rd largest economy, as well as public health. The death toll in China has now reached 1,868.
Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos is the latest U.S. billionaire to put his money into protecting the planet. He pledged $10 billion on Monday to fund scientists, activists, and nonprofits countering the effects of climate change. An announcement said his Earth Fund will start issuing grants this summer. The move follows Amazon's goal to be net carbon neutral by 2040, the first major corporation to announce such a goal. But cutting the emissions will be challenging for a company that delivers 10 billion items a year. It has a massive transportation and data center footprint and has faced protests by environmental activists and criticism from within its own workforce. Bezos is currently the world's richest man with a net worth of $130 billion. With the new fund, he joins a growing list of billionaires putting money into the battle against the impact of global warming. They also include hedge fund manager Tom Steyer, Michael Bloomberg, and Microsoft's Bill Gates.
An army spokesman announces Syrian forces have regained control of dozens of villages and towns in Aleppo province. Yet another advance the day after a huge strategic gain for President Bashar al-Assad on Sunday, when his forces drove insurgents from the highway linking Aleppo to Damascus, reopening the route between Syria's 2 largest cities for the first time in years. The latest gains prompting celebrations on Aleppo's streets. But the cost has been vast. The fight since the start of the year, backed by Russian airstrikes, to regain the last parts of the Aleppo countryside and Idlib province, has driven hundreds of thousands of Syrian civilians towards the border, in the biggest single displacement of the 9-year-old civil war. Assad said Monday his forces' recent gains were a prelude to the insurgents' defeat, sooner or later.
إلا أننا نعي تماما أن هذا التحرير
We know this liberation does not mean the end of the war or the crushing of all plots,
ولا زوال الإرهاب
or the end of terror or the surrender of the enemy, but it definitely rubs their noses in the dirt.
تمريغ أنوفهم بالتراب.
His momentum has upset the fragile cooperation between Turkey and Russia, who back opposing sides. They started a new round of talks on Monday to try to resolve the standoff. Ankara wants a ceasefire and for Assad to stand down his forces. And it has sent convoys of reinforcements to Idlib province to help the insurgents it backs regain lost territory. But the Syrian army, flush with victory, vows to wipe out militants wherever they are found.
It's the beginning of the end for Hong Kong as an international finance centre. That's the dire message from one economist in this embattled city on Tuesday. Francis Lun says the latest coronavirus outbreak will deal the knockout blow to an already battered economy.
Last year we suffered from the trade war and then the civil unrest. And now when we are just about to get back to our feet and we had the coronavirus outbreak, so it's a triple blow. I don't think Hong Kong will ever regain its former glory. This is the beginning of the end.
Flights and hotel bookings have been cancelled, driven by both travel restrictions and fear. A handful of big events like the Rugby Sevens in Hong Kong have also been postponed, events that usually draw in big crowds and big dollar signs. The city is also grappling with a tough labour market. New government figures released on Tuesday show unemployment is at its highest in 3 years, rising to 3.4% in the 3-month period to January. Hong Kong's leader, Carrie Lam, who's no stranger to a crisis, increased a relief fund to tackle the impact of the virus. She announced on Tuesday government handouts to businesses and the hospital authority will increase from $3.2 billion to $3.6 billion. Other recent measures, though, haven't been enough to combat anti-government protests, which have continued across the city.
More than 300 Americans are back in the U.S. Monday, including 14 infected with the coronavirus after being quarantined on a cruise ship that had the largest cluster of cases outside of China. These images show passengers on board the Diamond Princess being cleared to disembark the ship after being detained at a Japanese port for 2 weeks, wearing surgical masks as they loaded buses with workers in head-to-toe protective gear before boarding 2 chartered jets that flew them to the U.S. 14 people tested positive for the virus while on the way back. They were isolated in specialized containment areas on the planes. One jet landed Sunday night at Travis Air Force Base in California, the other at Joint Base San Antonio in Texas. The passengers will remain under quarantine another 14 days. China has responded to the virus by locking down Hubei's provincial capital, Wuhan, where the virus first appeared, a megacity of 11 million people. It has also imposed restrictions in a number of other cities. Outside of China, the WHO said it has received reports of 694 cases from 25 countries, with 3 deaths. The organization's executive director warned one reporter that it is premature to label the coronavirus a pandemic.
Yeah, I think we need to be extremely cautious in using the term pandemic. The real issue here is whether we're seeing efficient community transmission outside of China. And at the present time, we're not observing that. The majority of cases outside China have a direct link still back to China. So therefore, I think we have to be very, very careful not to drive fear in the world right now.
Of the 3,700 passengers on board the Diamond Princess, more than 400 tested positive for the virus. That includes 40 Americans diagnosed days ago who were prohibited from flying back to the U.S. They remain in Japan for treatment.
And this was our last report. Thank you for watching and goodbye.